Chapter 32. Let's just get a bit further away, Carl says. Then we can stop for a breath. Samson doesn't seem to mind that we're going much faster than usual. I'm terrified that I'm going to trip, but he still guides me carefully, even though Marty's kick must have scared him. Oh, Samson, I say, once we've stopped, you saved us. I throw my arms around him. I love you, I tell him, hugging him tighter. You're my hero. What do we do now? Mads pants. I've still got the package. I didn't know whether to drop it. I didn't have time to think. We have got to call the police, I tell her. How bad do you think Marty was? Should we call an ambulance too? I'm so sorry I got you into this, says Charlie. I'm so sorry. But I'm going to head off now. The police, they won't believe anything I say. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get into any trouble. But Charlie, I say. He's gone, says Mads. He's running fast too. You're not going to run off, are you? I ask Carl, squeezing his arm tight. I'm going to stay here with you. Don't worry, says Carl. When Marty threatened us with a knife and tied us up, I thought I was dead. He said if we fought back, he'd kill the two of you. You've just saved my life. His voice is actually full of emotion. I'm going to call the police, says Mads, but one of you can speak to them. I'm only going to get all tongue-tied. Now, we should tell them everything we know and let them sort it out, I say, including Reuben. I'm still worried about him. Mads gets through and hands the phone to me, and I answer the questions as best as I can, though I hand the phone back to Mads to describe Marty. We're told to stay where we are. An ambulance is on its way and the police are coming too. They seem especially interested to hear that we still have the package. Mads says she's put it in her bag. I take the chance to give Samson a drink of water. When the police come, they tell us the warehouse is empty. Marty's gone, but there's a trail of blood. Then they say they'll take us to the police station, that they'll have to call our parents. My mum is going to go crazy, Mads groans. I don't like to think how my parents are going to react. They probably won't let me out without a chaperone for another 10 years. We're interviewed separately. Mum's in Dublin at a conference, so it's Dad who sits beside me. He squeezes my hand gently, but I can tell he's angry by assuming, with the little huffs he's giving, he's assuming it's all some kind of a mistake, that I have nothing to do with anything. I wish he didn't have to be here while I answer these questions. The room is small and my voice seems to bounce loudly off the walls. There's no natural light and I just want to get out and go home. I'm scared. I'm going to get arrested for trafficking drugs. I wonder if I'd be allowed to have Samson with me in prison. I push away this thought, but it's comforting to have Samson under the chair with me now. Once I start talking, I tell the police everything, from Charlie and the note to my outings with Kyle, the house in Harwell Heath and the packages. My dad keeps trying to interrupt and the policewoman interviewing has to stop him. My daughter can't see. She can't have had any idea there were drugs involved, he insists. Please, sir, DC Fenn interrupts, if you carry on like this, we will have to ask you to leave and get another responsible adult instead. Apologies, says Dad, and I can hear him taking deep breaths to calm himself down. It's just all very hard to take in, he says. I do understand, sir, but we're very grateful to your daughter for helping us with our inquiries. She's providing some very useful information. So, Libby, she continues, tell me about Carl. How well do you know him? I tell her about school and art and our trip to Harwell Heath. She asks more questions which I can't answer, like where he's been for the last few days and where he lives. I'm sure that it was Marty who killed that boy Zach, I add. He was the boss. They were all scared of him, and he threatened to slit Kyle and Charlie's throats, and he kicked Samson. Have you found him yet? We're still looking for him, and Charlie, and the other boy, Jerome, or Jez. I believe he calls himself that, says DC Fenn. Charlie didn't do anything, I tell her. He's just really scared to talk to you. Well, once we find him, he can explain, can't he, she says. And Reuben, I ask, will you send someone to help Reuben, please? It can't be his fault that he got involved. I'm sure he had no idea what was going on. Yes, of course. Sounds like he was cuckooed. Cuckooed? Dad repeats. This is what happens with county lines, DC Fenn explains. A gang sets up a line, a phone number, and they recruit kids to move drugs around the country. Then they find someone vulnerable and they take over their house. It's like cuckoos laying eggs in another bird's nest. The kid stays there. Sometimes it's a vulnerable drug user, sometimes a lonely older person, or someone with learning difficulties like Reuben. Poor Reuben, I say. He thought they were his friends. He even called them his brothers. He was really upset that they'd all gone and just left him. Well, I'm afraid they were just using him, says DC Fenn. Don't worry. We'll make sure it doesn't happen to him again. We can put a closure order on his property to prevent anyone going in who shouldn't be there. And we'll check that he's got the support that he needs. And these kids they've got involved with, they're just kids, said Dad. Surely they don't set out to become drug dealers. The gang leaders groom them, DC Fenn explains. The drug dealer acts like a friend, buys the young people things, mobile phones, trainers. And after a while they offer them the chance to make some money. They tell them it's a job as a courier. And then the kids, they start delivering packages and they get paid, which they're happy about to start with. The dealers get them transporting drugs from town and villages and cities, and they give them somewhere to stay too. It's really hard for us to track them across different regions. Do you know what? That's pretty much how Charlie explained it, I comment. The next thing they know, they're all completely caught up in it, says DC Fenn. They're expected to bring the money in, and if they don't do what they're told, they find their new friends suddenly get a lot less friendly. They use violence and threats. And if one or two get killed along the way or in prison, the dealers couldn't care less because they're easily replaced. A lot of kids are vulnerable and they get hooked in. This is a dreadful business, says Dad. Sometimes the gang leader arranges for the kid to be robbed and then says he owes the money he's lost. That way he's trapped, DC Fenn explains. Do you think that's what happened to Charlie? So he wasn't really robbed? Probably most likely a setup, DC Fenn explains. We're really trying to raise awareness about this, to send people into schools to give talks about it, warn them of the dangers. But it's a losing battle. I know you were trying to help your friend Libby, but you could easily have got sucked in deeper. You were carrying drugs to a user. You really should have contacted us or told someone about it a lot sooner. We find Mads and her mum in the waiting room. Are you okay? Mads asks. I'm exhausted, I tell her. They said I should have gone to the police earlier. They said that to me too, says Mads. We could have been charged with drug dealing, Libby. Oh, what a business. Mads' mum sounds sad and tired. I never imagined our girls would get caught up in something like this. Never. Me neither, Dad says firmly. Carrying drugs, mixing with those people? Mads' mum goes on. Anything could have happened. I know, Dad says, sighing. I'm as shocked as you are. But we did call the police in the end, I remind them. But Mads, I'm so sorry I got you involved. I was really stupid. No, you weren't, says Mads. You were just trying to help Kyle. Where is Kyle? I ask. Is he still being questioned? We need to wait for him, Dad. I'm afraid he might be a lot longer, says DC Fenn. We have a lot of questions for him. His mother isn't well enough to come and we're waiting for an appropriate adult and the duty solicitor. But he didn't do anything, I protest. Why does he need a solicitor? We need to question him about the murder of Zach Defoe. I almost laugh, but that's crazy. He had nothing to do with that. Well, we have evidence that suggests he may have been involved. I suddenly feel like I'm about to keel over. Look, sit down here a moment, Libby, says Dad. It can't be him. It can't be, I tell her. I'm unable to discuss that with you, I'm afraid, says DC Fenn. But Kyle didn't do it, Dad. I insist as Dad guides my hand to the open car. I let Samson jump in before climbing in myself. Dad gets in and starts the engine. All seems pretty dodgy to me. I can't believe you were mixing with someone like that. Dad, he was just trying to help Charlie. Why would he kill Zach? Who knows, says Dad. Maybe he was high on drugs. Oh, parents can be so stupid. Carl doesn't take drugs, I say. It must have been Marty. The police haven't found him, have they? The police will look at it from every angle, says Dad. I'm sure they'll work it out. The car ride home is strained and silent. It's a relief to get back to my room and snuggle up with Samson. I can always pretend none of it's real, but the peace doesn't last long. I am horrified by all of this, says Dad, coming into my room. I just can't believe you got involved, and I cannot understand why you didn't come and talk to me. I wish you'd just go away and leave me alone, but I say nothing. What if you'd been charged with drug dealing? Dad demands. That's what you were doing, Libby. Even if you felt you had no choice, you heard what the police officer said. I'm not sure you understand how serious this is. You betrayed our trust, and when you were meant to be grounded too. Your mum was so keen to give you more independence, but I was right all along. It was too much and too soon. You weren't ready for it. But Dad, I'm going to have to discuss appropriate consequences for you for this with your mum, Dad interrupts. I thought you were sensible. You are lucky nothing worse happened. You could have gone to prison, or you could be dead. I feel wretched. I'm sorry, I say, tears pricking my eyes. I didn't mean any of this to happen. Well, that's as may be. And it's our fault as much as yours. We'll just have to start again. We'll get Gran back here for after school every day like before. There's no need. I think there is, he says firmly. I lie in bed that night, comforted only by the sound of Samson's breathing in his bed across the room. It's so hot. I'm sleeping just under a sheet with a fan on lightly too. I wonder where Kyle is now. Are they keeping him at the police station? Is he in a cell? It was Charlie's note that started all of this. If I hadn't given it to Carl, none of this would have happened. I wake when Mum comes home. It must be 11 p.m. Minutes later, I can hear Mum and Dad arguing in their bedroom, and I know it's about me. I don't want to hear what they're saying, but their room is next to mine and the voices are too loud to ignore. It was your idea to give her all this freedom, Dad's saying. See what happened? She wasn't ready for it. She's too naive. She's not worldly enough. She's not worldly because you and your mother insist on mollycoddling her, Mum answers. How's she going to learn if she stays at home and goes nowhere? You know I'm not suggesting that. Just one thing at a time. And why weren't you keeping more of an eye on her? I was away and you were here. You should have known exactly who she was with, where she was. That shouldn't be too much to ask. But she lied to me, says Dad. My heart sinks when I hear him say this. He sounds so disappointed, and it's true. I've never lied before, not like this. She lied because she knew you wouldn't let her do what she wanted, says Mum. Yes, like go off with some strange boy, get involved with drug dealers, traffic drugs around the country. Too right I wouldn't have let her do that. She's no different from any other teenager, and she doesn't want to be, says Mum. All teenagers get into scrapes, push their boundaries, it's normal. All right, this is a bit more serious than a scrape, but I'm sure she never set out to do anything wrong. But she isn't like other teenagers, Dad rants. She's visually impaired and it makes a big difference. The world isn't an easy place for her. She's much more likely to get hurt because she's less able to tell what's going on. And she needs to learn, Mum repeats. She needs to be allowed to make mistakes. We will worry, of course, but we can't wrap her in cotton wool. Well, I think she should be grounded for a whole month, says Dad. I hope she'll learn something from that, and at least she won't come to any more harm. Oh, let's not ground her again. I think we should give her a chance, says Mum. I don't want to curb her independence now, when she's just beginning to get more confident. I'm not so sure, says Dad. Do you realise how serious this was? What could have happened? Of course I do. And I'll have a good talk to her, and I'll make sure she fully understands. I have to go in early tomorrow, but I'll talk to her when I get back. Let's show her that we do have confidence in her. OK, if that's what you think, says Dad. I only hope you're right. I'm very relieved to hear about the grounding, but I'm still sad that I feel I've let them both down. There's no more news the next day, and it's so hard to get any information. I don't know Carl's address or home number, and although I ask at school, they won't give it to me. I try ringing the police station, but they say there's nothing they could tell me either. I tried texting Carl a few times in the hope he might answer, but there's no reply. I feel his absence in art the next day, when the table next to mine remains empty. I paint, but my heart isn't in it. "How's it going, Libby?" asks Miss Affia. "I think I've messed it up," I tell her. "That bit there, it's not the shape I wanted." "Well, we could just curve it a little," she suggests, "with a few strokes here and a lighter tone." She guides my hand to the place she means. I try it, and to my relief it is definitely an improvement. But I can't stop thinking about Kyle and hoping he's okay. "I don't know what to do," I tell Mads at lunchtime. "I feel so helpless." "Oh, Libby," says Mads, "I'm sure Kyle didn't do it." I feel restless at home. Gran is back on Dad's instruction, and she won't even let me go for a walk with Samson. Dad insists he'll walk with him later when he gets home. Samson keeps coming over and nuzzling me, wondering what's going on. "How's it going with Dominic?" I ask Gran, trying to make the best of it. "I haven't enjoyed myself so much for years," says Gran. "We're having the best time. We might even go on holiday together in September. Oh, it's lovely to have someone, Libby, but it has to be the right boy. This drug dealer of yours, I'm surprised at you. I know beggars can't be choosers, but drugs? Really, Libby? I thought you had more sense." I gasp in horror. "How can you say that? That's so insulting." This comes out louder than I intend, but I am so angry. "I am not a beggar. There's much more to me than just blindness, thank you very much. And Kyle is not a drug dealer or a drug user. He was just trying to help a friend, that's all, which is all I was trying to do too." "Oh, Libby, there's no need to lose your temper." "I haven't lost my temper, but what you said was horrible and untrue, and I'm angry." "It was a shock, that's all," says Gran, "to hear that you've got involved in all of that." "I wasn't involved," I repeat. "Well, I hope you've learnt your lesson and you're going to be more careful." "I have got homework to do," I tell her. I don't want to listen to any more of this. I go upstairs. I do have homework, but I'm not in the mood, so I groom Samson, first massaging his coat with my fingers, which he loves, and then I brush him and gently comb him. I finish by wiping him all over with a damp chamois until his coat is beautifully glossy. Samson's happy, and I do feel much calmer. Gran leaves, and Dad takes Samson for a walk. I go too. I don't feel like talking, and Dad doesn't say much either. When we get back, I know I must do some homework, but it's so hard to concentrate. I can't stop wondering what on earth has happened to Kyle. It isn't long before I find out. "Libby!" Mads exclaims as we're walking towards the school entrance the next day. She continues in an excited whisper. "It's Kyle! He's here!" "Kyle?" I repeat. "Where?" I search the blurred shapes for bodies for a taller one, but I'm looking straight ahead. I don't realise he's approaching from the side, and I jump when he replies. "Libby, I'll talk to you later, okay?" His voice is flat. Later isn't good enough for me. I've been so desperate to speak to him. "But Kyle," I reply, "are you okay?" "Later." He moves away, the dark shape of him diminishing against the light floor and the walls of the corridor. I feel a chill through my legs, even though I was too hot only moments ago. Samson brushes against me, warming and comforting, but I'm still anxious. "OMG, Libby, he looks awful," says Mads. "Washed out. It's like somebody's drained all the colour out of him. His eyes, his mouth. It's kind of sinking into his face." I shudder at the image. Mads never spares me any details. My heart wrenches for him. "But they let him go," I say. "He's back at school. They can't have charged him with anything, can they?" "Well, not with murder, anyway," says Mads, a bit too loud for my liking. "Are you coming to lunch?" Mads asks after history. "Yeah," I say. Can you see if Carl's anywhere? No, but we'll look for him in the dining hall. Do you want to sit with him? Why would I want to eat lunch with Kyle when he doesn't even want to talk to me? I grumble. He did say later, not never, says Mads. We reach the counter. I can smell the fish and chips, but I'm not sure what else there is, so Mads reads me the options. I stick with fish and chips. Oh, she says, I can see him. He's over in the corner on a table full of year 8s. There are no other spaces. He's looking down and he's eating. I don't think he wants to talk to anyone. Well, that obviously includes me, so I'm surprised when he speaks to me in art. Libby, he says. I hear the swishing sound as he puts his papers down at the table beside me. Hi, I say, my fingers tingling as his voice speaks my name. I'm really sorry about earlier, he continues quietly. It's all been a bit traumatic and I wasn't sure about coming back to school, about what people knew. Well, I've not said anything. Of course not, he says. Listen, are you around after school? Could we go somewhere and talk? The park, I suggest. Oh, then I remember Gran will be at home expecting me back, but I can't go home without hearing what he has to say. I don't like lying again, but I'll have to call Gran with an excuse and hope she believes me. I feel Samson's tail wagging against me. He heard the word park. Yeah, that'd be good, says Carl. My heart's beating fast now, and it's more than just wanting to know what happened with police. It's about being with Kyle. I call Gran as I come out of school. I'm meeting up with Jenny, my support worker, I explain. She was meant to come earlier, but she's running late. I really need some help with my English. There's a book I can get in large print or braille. Of course, Libby, says Gran. Thanks for letting me know. Call me when you're on your way home, or I can come and pick you up if you prefer. No, I'm fine. I'll walk. I'll call you when I'm on my way, I promise, I tell her. Oh, I hate lying, but I feel more justified doing it when I think about the horrid things she said yesterday. Hi. Carl sounds more cheerful to my relief. I'm also relieved he didn't hear me lying to Gran. He's a good dog, that one, says Carl, as we walk towards the park. I don't like to think what might have happened if Marty hadn't got caught in Samson's lead. I watched it happen. It was like slow motion. The way he lost his footing, keeled over, whacked his head. I know he couldn't have, but it almost looked like Samson was walking around the post deliberately trying to trip up Marty. Can't have been deliberate, but it was amazing all the same, I tell him. We reach the park and we walk towards a bench. I let Samson off for a run. What happened to you with the police? They kept me there for 24 hours, and I thought they'd let me go, but then they got an extension for another 12. It was awful. He pauses. I wait, but he says nothing. So I reach over instinctively and I touch his arm, feeling for his hand, and he takes my hand in his. They think I must know all kinds of stuff, he continues. Stuff I've actually got no idea about. And worst of all, they think I killed Zach. They've let me go now while they pursue their inquiries, but I'm not off the hook. But why do they think it was you? I ask. They found the knife. It had my fingerprints on it. I gasp in horror. Oh, Kyle! You sound like you think I did it, Kyle exclaims. Of course not, I tell him. It's only my prints, he goes on. Or they would have charged me already, but they're on it. Remember the knife Zach tried to give me? I dropped it instantly, but that knife, that was the murder weapon. I'll talk to the police, I suggest. I can tell them that I was there when Zach tried to give it to you. But Libby, you didn't actually see, he says gently. You can't say for sure that I didn't take it, can you? I feel suddenly helpless. I wish I could do something, I say. I know you're innocent. Carl squeezes my hand and I squeeze back. I read about Zach online, I comment. His parents said he was a good kid, doing well at school until he started skipping lessons, hanging out with someone who got him going up and down the country, moving drugs. Yeah, says Carl. Charlie said Zach wanted out, didn't he? Zach thought I'd be in danger looking for Charlie. Turns out he was right. Only it was him that lost his life. Do you think Marty killed Zach? I ask. Well, I thought he was going to kill us in that warehouse, Zach's car size. I think it had to be him, but I don't know for sure. I don't know anything. Well, the police need to talk to Marty, I say. He's hiding or long gone, says Carl. He's clever, Marty. He doesn't care who takes the blame. All I can do right now is just wait. Gran's gone when I get home, but Dad's there waiting in the hall. What's up? I ask warily. Have you seen Joe? He demands. Did he tell you what he was doing today? He's not here. Your Gran was ever so worried. At least you let her know that you had a meeting. I feel a flash of guilt. But Joe, he never goes anywhere, I say. Exactly, says Dad, and he's not answering his phone. As if we haven't got enough trouble with you, and now Joe's starting. At that moment, the front door bangs, and I move away from it. Oh, I'm relieved Joe is home. And also that it's his turn for an interrogation. Joe, where have you been? Dad demands. I went to Reptile Club, says Joe. Reptile Club? Dad repeats. It's the first I've heard of any reptile club. Well, that's where I was, says Joe. Hi, Libby. Your Gran was worried sick, says Dad. I thought she wasn't coming anymore. Anyway, I thought I'd be back before you, Dad. Sorry about that. Well, next time, please will you let us know, says Dad. I'd like to hear more about this reptile club. Yeah, right, says Joe. Later. Do you want a biscuit? I ask Joe. No, Tar, says Joe. I'm going to check on Whiff. He was looking a bit peaky this morning. Whiff's a snake, named for the stench he lets off. I leave Joe to it. I hear you went to Reptile Club, says Mum later when we're having dinner. Joe sighs. Why is everyone making such a fuss about it? Well, it's only that you never really go anywhere, Joe, I remind him. No big deal, says Joe. You've been nagging me to get out and make more friends, Mum. Now I have. Well, I'm very happy that you found some other people who share your interests, says Mum. Sounds great. We don't want to curb your freedom. Just tell us where you're going and who you're going with, okay, says Dad. Where is this club anyway? How did you find out about it? And why didn't you answer your phone when I called? I just forgot to charge my phone, says Joe. It's not far away. A mate of mine told me about it. Can you just chill? I'm in trouble if I stay in, and now you're giving me a grilling if I go out. It's like I can't win. I hear Joe's chair scrape back and then his feet on the stairs. It's Dad's turn to sigh. I knock on Joe's door when I go upstairs. I feel sorry for him, even though I'm relieved it's his turn to get all the questioning instead of me. What? He asks. You okay? I ask. Reptile Club sounds good. Right up your street. Yeah, I found out about it online, says Joe. I chat with other reptile people. There's a guy on there, Paul. He told me about the Reptile Club. So you don't actually know him? You are starting to sound like Mum and Dad, he protests. I didn't mean to. I'm just interested, I tell him. We only just met face to face, says Joe. But I've known him for ages online. He's older than me, but it's cool. It's all cool. He's got tree frogs. He says he'll show me them sometime. He's really friendly. Joe's phone rings. Sounds like a frog croaking, not his usual ringtone. Aren't you going to answer that? I ask. Not important, he says. Only Paul. Speak to him later. Lying in bed that night, I'm thinking about Joe. I wonder if he's lonely. He never seems to have any friends, and now suddenly he's finding new people to meet up with. An older guy who's being friendly. He didn't want to speak to him in front of me. Joe says it's a reptile club, but what if it's not? What if he's being sucked in, like Charlie and Zach and Jez? Maybe the tree frogs don't even exist. What if this is county lines too, or some other kind of grooming? I wondered how parents don't spot that their kids are getting into stuff. But maybe it's happening in my family too, right under our noses. I'm not going to say anything to Mum and Dad, not yet. There must be a way I can check this out for myself. My phone rings and it's Mads, so I decide to tell her. Surely not, she says. Well, he seems happier, but isn't that what it's like at the start, I say? I think he's even got a new mobile. It's got a different ringtone. The police said that could be a sign. Why didn't you ask him, she suggests. He might not even know himself, I say. He may genuinely think he's made a friend when it's all actually a plan to try and suck him in. What do you want to do then? Do you want to tell your parents? Well, I don't want to jump in case I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion. I just want to make sure without accusing him or worrying Mum and Dad. Maybe this is crazy, but I wondered maybe we should follow him. Would you come with me? Mads sighs. Is that a good idea? Do you really want to risk getting in trouble again? And won't he spot us? I mean, I'm not being funny, but you do rather stand out. He's in a dream world. He won't be looking behind him, I tell her. And if he does, we'll just have to act like it's a big coincidence. I don't think he'd ever imagine I'd be following him. I can't believe I am saying this, says Mads. But okay, I'll come. It's the following evening at dinner when Dad helps me out by asking Joe when his next reptile club meeting is. Joe grunts. I wait. Maybe he's got a mouthful of chicken. Pardon? Dad says. Why are you asking me? Joe says gruffly. You don't want to come, do you? I'm only showing an interest in what you're doing. How often does this group meet? Give me a break, Dad, Joe moans. Just making conversation. Well, let's talk about something else then. I'm beginning to feel a bit more suspicious now. If it really is a reptile club, then why is Joe so reluctant to talk about it? Have you given it up? Dad asks. Aren't you going to go anymore? I'll be giving up on this dinner in a minute, Joe retorts, and I'm going to go back into my room. Just tell us what's going on, Dad suggests, then we'll stop asking. Joe gives a deep sigh. Next meeting's on Wednesday. They meet once a week. Are you happy now? That wasn't so hard, was it? Says Dad. Joe huffs. I'm taking my dinner upstairs, he announces, where I can eat in peace in the company of gentle creatures that just accept me as I am. Oh, Joe, Dad protests, but I can hear Joe's chair scrape back and the squeak of the kitchen door. Hormones, probably, Dad tuts. I'm wondering whether to talk to Dad to tell him my suspicions, but I don't. I might be wrong anyway, and if Dad interferes, Joe will catch on pretty fast, and then he might not go wherever he's going. Instead, I text Mads and I say that she'll be free on Wednesday to follow him with me. When Wednesday comes, Mads is round at mine after school and we chat in my room. The door partly open so Mads will spot Joe heading out. At 4 p.m, he's clearly getting ready to leave. Mads and I head down too, along with Samson, making out to Joe and Gran that Mads is going home and we're taking Samson for a walk. We give Joe a 30-second head start. We don't want him to get too far ahead, but neither do we want him to realise that we're following. I hope he's not going too far, or this is going to be impossible. You were right about him being in a world of his own, Mads says. He's got headphones on and he's looking at his phone too. We walk for about 20 minutes. Luckily, it isn't so hot. I'd be worrying about stopping to give Samson a drink. He's gone into a cafe, Mads explains. She stops and Samson and I stop too. I don't want to go any further, or he might see us through the window. What are we going to do? I ask. Well, there's some dodgy-looking characters going in, she says. I lean against the wall. I've got a sun cap in my bag, Mads tells me. I'll put it on and I'll sneak up, see if I can find out what's going on. You wait here, just don't move. I won't be long. I stand there waiting. In the end, I pull my phone from my bag and I scroll through, listening to the start of messages. I'm half aware of two people chatting and laughing as they pass. Then I vaguely hear something that sounds like, "Did you see that? Pretending to be blind, looking at her phone? Must be in it for the benefits. What a fraud, we should report her." I slip my phone back into my bag and I stand there almost shaking with anger. I want to respond, but I feel too scared on my own. I don't know how many of them there are. Tears prick my eyes, even though I can hear Mum's voice telling me, "Be strong, don't let them get to you, they're just ignorant." Most of the time I can believe in myself. I'm determined to live a full life and to do what I want to do. But then other times I feel scared and I realise I'm in too deep, like now, when I'm on my own and people say horrible things. Right now, I feel like I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to be like everyone else, even with Samson. I can't just do what everyone else does. I shiver. I wish Mads would come back. I have no idea where I am.